Hey folks, R1 here. There's an interesting event going on today. Henan Province. It's lower level Russian versus Japanese. I looked at this event and I said, this looks kind of fun actually. I'm going to pick out the plane that is least likely to survive to the end and see just how long I can keep the thing alive. I chose the B5N2, the only bomber available to the Japanese team. It doesn't even have any guns on it other than a tail gun. Although its bomb loadout's pretty good, it pales in comparison to the Russian offerings. Let's see what happens. Well, there's a cloud cover, which is a good start. That's going to help me out quite a bit and keep the fighters, hopefully, a little bewildered as to where I am. This plane is actually one of the quicker ones out there, at least compared with the Russian bombers. And it can carry, in the configuration I have it set up in right now, 6 60-kilogram bombs. They drop 2 at a time, which is a little unfortunate. But I'm going to go ahead and deploy those on ground targets. I'm going to start out with artillery because, as you'll see, the flak coming up at me is a little too intense and I need to thin that out. And this plane is a fairly graceful flyer compared with most of them on the battlefield, especially compared with other bombers. But I have gotten myself into a situation where I'm diving a little too steeply to get lined up properly. And flak is bouncing me around pretty good right now, so I'm going to actually have to go past it and come back to the target. But that's really not a problem in this plane. It's, even in realistic mode, very agile and very stable, as well as fast. And that's a nice combination. So I've got fire coming in from in front and from AAA emplacements to the side. I drop on a couple of targets as I pass over and score 2 ground kills, which is a good start, and that's going to make things a little bit more survivable over this particular group of targets. We're going to take one more pass here and see what we can do and peel out of there. Now, this whole match for me was more or less just an experiment. I really did want to see if I could keep this plane alive at least until the end of the match. It has been my experience in this match that the Japanese tend to get mauled by the Russian forces, even though the Russians are outnumbered in this event. The Russian bombers alone are incredibly beastly during this event and are used often in a very aggressive fashion. For case in point, there's one pursuing me right now. He's looking to take me out before I can do any harm. He's got a fighter on his tail, and that doesn't bother him a lot. These little Russian bombers are extremely good at taking out fighter aircraft. And they have twin machine guns in the nose, and he's looking to use those right now to try and take me out of the picture as well. But I'm faster than him. And while I only have 1 machine gun in the tail, it's actually not a bad machine gun. Just look at the volume of fire coming out of this guy, though. If he had been connecting solidly with those, I'd have been shredded. But as it stands, I'm able to drive him away. And part of that was because I was starting to get his range, but also I was just flat out running him. So hey, bonus points there for the little Japanese bomber. I'm going to go ahead and reload. Again, there's my 6 60-kilogram bombs. And head back in. See what I can do. Right now we have a slight advantage over them as far as kills. If you look at the ticker at the top of the screen. Cut off to the side and then pull in to head straight for the target. There's a lot of planes in the vicinity though, so this is looking a little problematic. give this plane one thing. It's got very good aerodynamics in realistic mode. It is probably one of the more nimble aircraft that I have flown in realistic mode, and that is a little impressive. I haven't flown this thing in months, and I'd forgotten just how good it could be. I go after that light tank, and I overshoot it slightly, which is a waste of bombs, and that's a little annoying. And I realize I released just a split second too late. So I'm going to have to wheel around and go back and correct that mistake. Still, I'm doing pretty good on the ticker. We're taking out ground targets faster than the Russian team is. I think those bombers are spending too much time dogfighting and too little time working on ground units. But as I'm thinking this, I've also jinxed myself, because right after this they start focusing on those ground targets, and that's going to end up being a bad thing for our team, as you'll see soon. Right now I'm making a run for it back to base. But here we go again. Russian bomber on my tail, and again a friendly fighter behind him that gets his face shot off. This is going to be a brutal little contest between these Russian bombers and myself. I can't hurt them too badly with my single machine gun, but I am scoring hits, and eventually getting shot in the face does discourage them. The key to my survival is simply fending them off long enough to outrun them. And that's exactly what I do. They cannot keep up with me. It's the only advantage I have. I'm going to have to exploit it to the fullest if I'm going to make it to the end of this match. He has other problems. I've hurt him, and he ended up with a friendly fighter on his tail. Thank God. We needed to thin those guys out a little bit. So it's back to base for another rearm, and I decide I want to experiment a little bit. I'm going to put on an 800 kilogram bomb. I don't want that armor piercing one. I want this one. I want the ground bomb. I'm going to go after a base. I just want to see how much damage one of these 800 kilogram bombs will do to the base. I didn't pick the armor piercing bomb because obviously that is more something you would use for ships, heavily armored targets. The ground bombs do much better against bases. I don't even get there before they're on me again. These guys have a serious problem with a Japanese bomber being in the air, apparently. Again, friendly fighter on his tail. That's one thing that's working in my advantage, is we do have a numerical superiority, at least at the beginning of the match. I'm going to actually get some pretty good hits in on this guy, but he's doing his best to shred me. I got a critical there. That kind of surprised me. It doesn't take him out, though. He's smoking, but it takes a little bit more than a single critical hit to take down a Russian bomber, even a light bomber like that one. Yeah, I know he's out of range, but I really want to make sure that he doesn't have second thoughts about coming after me again. Now you'll notice that we are starting to lose the advantage in the tickers up above. We're losing more planes, and more of our ground targets are starting to be destroyed. The Russian bombers are starting to pay a little bit more attention to them. That's a bad thing. We do outnumber them 3-2, 3 fighters to their 2 bombers, not counting me. So let's see what we do against this base. We'll peel away quickly. It's a good hit. And I'm going to look over my shoulder, and not quite good enough to take the base out. If this bomber's bomb load could take out a base with one run, it would be an extremely strong contender in this particular match. But as it is, if I want to take it out, I'm going to have to go back and reload again. And that's unfortunate. It's time consuming. Oh, a kill assist. That bomber that I critical, he just went down. That's going to leave, here in a minute, us with 3 fighters and 1 bomber. But it's a Russian bomber. How do you think that's going to end up? On my next trip to base, I'm going to stick with the 800 kilogram ground bomb. I want to go ahead and take that base out. I want to see just how much of an impact it's going to make on the ticker count up above. I get there without any issues and land squarely on target. And that will be sufficient, of course, to go ahead and take the base out the rest of the way. It drops the ticker count a significant amount, but nowhere near enough to swing the battle back into our favor. And we have rapidly gone from 1 friendly fighter, or from 3 friendly fighters down to 1. Yeah. Now I'm not sure if AA claimed some of our boys, or if it was all that fighter, Hooch, or that bomber, Hooch. I used to game with a guy named Hooch back in EVE Online about 5 years ago. I wonder if it's the same guy. He was pretty good in that game too, if it was. But I'm heading back to base. I'm going to grab another load out of bombs. Hooch and our friendly fighter there are duking it out, or are about to, at range. And that'll buy me time. I need to get back to base. So we're going to load up one more time. I don't really want to take the time to switch to a lighter bomb load. I want to get into this as quickly as I can. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with the 800 kilogram bomb. But Hooch has just taken out the last fighter on my team. So I have it in my head, if I'm going to have any chance at all, and frankly I don't really have a chance at this point of actually winning this match. The best I can do is survive to the end. But if I'm going to have any chance at all of actually winning this match, I'm not going to be able to kill enough ground targets, even if I re-equipped with 6 60 kilogram bombs. So I'm going to head in the direction of their base. I've got one chance. If he's out of bombs, then maybe I can bomb him on the runway. But as you can see, he wasn't out of bombs. He finishes off the last few ground targets, and that's going to end the match. But you know what? That's okay. Against all odds, this ridiculous little bomber with its 1 gun in the tail managed to survive and actually do pretty well, especially in comparison to our fighters. I actually held off those enormously dangerous Russian bombers long enough to do some good work. And our fighters had a tendency to just fly up, get on their tail, and die. So I wasn't displeased with this match at all. It wasn't a win, but I felt that surviving the match was actually a pretty big win. Well, that's it for now. If you like the content, I know this was a quick one, but if you liked it, please subscribe and remember to share it with your friends. And until I see you again, good hunting.